Artist to Art. I'm Aaron Jack. Welcome, Aaron Jack Lineart. We're going to be here with a very special guest, Elinor Shapiro, today. So thank you for joining. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Shell. Elinor will be on shortly. Appreciate you, the audience. The audience, the one who invites their friends, the one who asks questions, the one who comes on this journey. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello. Hello. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well. You know, there's nothing like a wonderful Tuesday to be present. So, why don't you tell us, what's inspired you? What's been on your mind? What's been on your heart?
Well, a lot of my work is figurative, so it's always people. And I get asked a lot if they are specific people, if they're self-portraits. And my response is always the same, that they're more emotions than actual people. So a lot of my work is inspired by emotional interaction and conflict and how I feel, as simple as that, how I feel. So, yeah.
So what emotional interactions have you had lately that inspire you? Or that have spoken to you? You didn't know, just.
It's a little bit of a hard question because I don't know. It's usually like I don't necessarily have a specific interaction or moment that inspires me. It's more just like daily dynamic between people and between how I feel in myself. But I can't ever paint about it when I'm feeling it. So I have to kind of work through how I feel, and then I can paint about it, if that makes any sense.
Okay, so let's work through it. Let's work through it together. Share with me, like, we're working through it together. How are we doing this?
Well, I think that my paintings are never really about positive feelings. And I think that might be because there's not so much to process about a positive feeling. You feel it, it feels good, you're happy or joyful, and you get flooded with that emotion, and it's there and wonderful. But if you have a conflict with somebody or a struggle or a question that you don't know the answer to, it takes longer to sort of work through it and feel it, and it may have more conflicting emotions within it. And I think that's really what comes out in my painting. So if, like, behind me, I've got a painting and there's two figures, and I don't think that they're necessarily separate figures so much as maybe two embodiments of maybe a more negative feeling and sort of working together or combating each other. So it's more just like painting the questions that you feel internally about life and people and what's going on around you. There's a lot of turmoil these days that lead to a lot of questions. And it's sort of embodying those questions.
Bring us through like a kind of a question, an internal, because it seems like the internal conflict is something that you struggle with. Could you tell me a little bit about that, like internal struggle or some of these internal struggles that you've had to deal with?
Well, I was living in France when COVID hit, and I had my sort of dream job, dream life. Everything was wonderful. And then, of course, the whole world changed. Planes got locked down. I couldn't leave France even if I wanted to. I had just renewed my visa, so I was supposed to stay. And then the opportunity for me came to move to New York City. And it's sort of like, well, that's like a really big change. Do I want to stay in France at my dream job, where it's rural and there's space even with the COVID lockdown? Or do I want to completely uproot my life and move to a city I've never lived in a whole different world? of course, all of the questions as well about what's going on with travel these days. Once I go back to the States, will I be able to leave again? Those are some big questions that determine, everything. So that's been a big one that's been on my mind for like 6 months now.
Wow. Wow. So those are some big internal conflicts to leave the rural blissful life and to
Hmm.
come to the city and what that is. So what did you decide and how did you work this out?
Um, well, I'm in New York now, so that's been my choice. I think for me, I'm still am working at Chateau Orcobo, which is an artist residency in France, um, and the end result was that because of the travel ban, nobody was coming in. And it was like, well, I'm not going to have any new stimulation, new people, interaction. I would just be out in rural France with nothing but myself. And New York, while it's a big unknown, I would at least get new stimulation and have new questions to paint about.
I guess that's kind of the challenge is where's there's the stimulation to paint about the internal conflicts, right?
Yeah.
And
Um,
how to put oneself in a place of having those conflicts almost.
There was a good 3 or 4 months over the past year that I just wasn't painting. It was hard for me to paint, and I attribute that to it being really difficult for me to paint during times of transition. I really need to kind of resolve some of my questions before I can sit down and paint about them. But especially when the lockdowns and all of that were going on, it was just question after question that couldn't be resolved, so I couldn't paint about them. Um, and that was hard to not be able to paint.
Wow, that's a really interesting thing that to have the things to paint about to also go through the unresolved and to sit with that. And
Hmm.
how does that feel to sit with the unresolved?
Kind of awful, because I mean, I think as artists, as artists, at least the ones I've met, we beat ourselves up if we're not creating. We feel like we're not doing what we should be doing. And there were a few artists for a while there who were quarantined and locked down and weren't able to travel back to where they were from. And I'm lucky that they were there because we came up with very juvenile projects to entertain ourselves with, which kept us creating, but not necessarily in a formal way that we normally create. So I remember one afternoon being just so frustrated that I couldn't paint. And we grabbed a huge stack of cardboard and some cheap paint, and we went outside and we finger painted. We just, like kids, like little kids, we just finger painted, silly faces and animals, and we danced around holding them up. And it was um, just an afternoon that made us create, but wasn't like this formal being an artist. You have to make an oil painting kind of creation. And so doing things like that has really helped me get through the quarantine and also keep creating.
Wow, it seems like that was very formative in your whole process is to get out of the headspace and to some degree of what you thought it needed to be.
Yeah, it's something that I do pretty regularly. Not regularly, like, but whenever I hit a wall with my art, it's taken years, but I've worked to forgive myself for not creating. I think I used to get into like an art block and just not be able to move past it, and just get more and more upset with myself that I wasn't able to get past it. And now, in place of that, I will just make something dumb. Whether I do a paper mache mask, or I paint my face and I take photos, or I finger paint, but just something that brings the fun back into creating. And that usually helps me work through it. And then I can get back to my more serious art.
It's very interesting. You talk about like the fun and then the seriousness. And that seems to be an interesting dynamic that is an emotional conflict, in fact, almost. How do you feel about that?
I haven't really ever thought about it.
That's why we're
Uh,
here. That's why
yeah,
we're here.
to push the hard questions. I think there's a relationship in that the fun projects that I usually do tend to involve face painting or mask making, um, which I think mirrors my more formal art, because a lot of my figures either don't have eyes or they don't have a mouth or they're wearing some sort of mask or they're blocked out in some way. So there's a kind of relationship between hiding and revealing the face. So I think they relate that way.
Mm, mm. So what kinds of fun projects have you been doing lately? Because you're talking about these mask making things. Because I've been thinking about the idea of mask making and the face painting too. Like, and it's very in this interesting and strange time where people are covering up their faces.
Mm-hmm.
Has that similarity come to you in any way? Like, what's your opinion about this? Because we have this now throughout our culture, the hiding away and like what does that mean and to grapple with that.
I actually haven't been doing as many of my quote unquote fun projects since I came to New York. I only came here in September, so right in the midst of all the COVID chaos, and actually it kind of got me out of that rut that I was in France, and I've been doing um, my more formal paintings. I did just make a plaster mask. It's a kind of monster mask.
Do you have it?
Yes, it's.
Let's see it. Let's see it. Let's go.
Okay.
Let's go.
All right, let's see. How do I?
Oh yeah.
So I haven't painted it yet, or I've only just started painting it, but it's a fun little.
Okay. Wait, can
He's
we
got.
see it with you wearing it? Like
Okay,
we
let's
have this
see.
like strange ability on the internet. There
I
we
can't.
go. There we go. Yes. Yes.
So yeah, that's like my first mask in the States.
Okay. Okay. So you're like coming back to this. It seems like a cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And you're doing some performative. You seem to have like some performative work that you've explored, or like what is happening?
So that's less performative and more just photography. So that was after all of the artists except for one who were in lockdown with me in France had left. It was, I think, around late May, uh, and all of us artists had done these plague doctor inspired paper mache masks. And after they all left, I kept making them, and we started doing um, these weird photos around rural France, where we sort of built outfits around them and characters. He's a, a photographer and a painter, and so he took all the photographs, Max Taylor, and I did the styling and the masks.
That seems like kind of the perfect scenario. I mean, to me, I'm like, wow, that seems like the perfect scenario for like I get into my art when I like go past that like my best work is always when I go past that sense of like knowing where I've been, like because this seems like you're going right here past that sense of knowing, past that sense
Mm-hmm.
of like, oh, I'm comfortable
Yeah.
with what it is.
I mean, I've never done any modeling or anything like that, so it was definitely out of my comfort zone to pose for photos like that. Um, yeah, we had some good times with that. Uh,
how long were you there? Like, kind of like feeling kind of stuck in this quarantine.
Well, most of the artists left in at the end of March, um, in a sort of frenzied flurry. We would wake up one morning and in the night, four artists had left without warning because, you know, the news was coming out and people were scared, so everyone was jumping on flights. So it was just, I think, like five of us until mid-May, and then it was just Max and me, um, until he had to leave in October. And then I didn't leave till September. So it was quite a while.
Wait. He left in you left in September and he left in October, or like?
Yeah.
Okay, so he left after you, and then
Oh,
Ziggy
no,
was
no,
there.
no. He left before me. Sorry.
Okay,
Uh,
no, I'm just trying
and
to.
I get my months mixed up.
Me
I'm
too. Me
so
too. I don't even know when I am.
so actually, Max, who he was the one who was there the longest with me, um, he left about a month before I did. And then
Wow.
yeah.
So you were there like 5 or 6 months, just like making art.
Mhm.
That sounds amazing. And this is at Chateau Orcaville, the one that Ziggy's running.
Yeah, I work with Ziggy.
Right. So for everybody who doesn't know Chateau Orcaville, I did an interview just like this, artist to art. I mean, just like this, just like another day. um, another beautiful day in the neighborhood here. I'm in Mr. Rogers' neighborhood here in Pittsburgh. But go check that out. Go follow me, Aaron Jack Line Art, and you will see the one with Ziggy. So check that out and learn more about Chateau Orcaville because it's amazing. Do you want to give
It's
us a
wonderful.
little synopsis here of Chateau Orcaville and what you have been working on there?
Yeah, so it's a an artist residency in a chateau in rural France. So as an artist, you can apply and you get a studio, and you can go for 2 weeks or a month, and um, you can work on your art. And all we do is provide a place and meals and a couple of events, but we don't tell you what to make or when to make it. And I work with Ziggy, so I help run things. I think technically the associate director, so I help run events and make sure all the artists have what they need. Um, and when travel restrictions are gone, it's a great place to go.
I'll be there. I'll be there. So everybody, go apply for Chateau Orcaville for
Yeah.
whenever, things are a little bit different and you can go hang out in rural France. Do you want to give us a little insider understanding of the chateau?
I don't know what one more insider there is. I mean, um, it's a great place to go if you want to create, but also get to spend a lot of time with people who are also creative. We accept visual artists, writers, photographers, um, really any form of artist, and everybody who comes really wants to be there. So it's people get so close, and it's really an experience that you can only understand with the people that you're there with. Um, it's really wonderful, and it can create really spontaneous, wonderful collaborations, like this photo that Max and I took together. Um,
Mm.
we have campfires and go swimming, and it's great.
That sounds like a wonderful time. So go check out Chateau Orcaville and the talk I did with Ziggy because we really get into it. We get into Chateau Orcaville and his idea of creating his his epic idea of what the world could be. So his utopia, Ziggy's
Yes,
utopia.
it is utopian.
Here's
There's
another
another
one.
one. Yeah. So we were taking these because of the lockdown restrictions in France, we weren't allowed off of the property without paperwork. So we had to fill out a form each time, and the time that we left the property, and then we would only have an hour of time before cops could like stop us and fine us. So we were taking these in the village, five minutes from the chateau, just because we weren't really allowed anywhere else. So this is right by the chateau driveway. This is one of the houses in the village. They gave us some strange looks.
Yeah, how has the village reacted to all of like the crazy artists like coming in from all over the world?
With very good humor, I think. I've definitely made some awkward eye contact with some of the villagers whenever I'm walking around in some outrageous get up. But now they just laugh. They're used to it.
Now you know their names. They're like, hey.
They do when plein air painters come and are painting the village. They get very excited and love to come and see what people are working on.
So it's kind of like involving the village in some, because it's very small, right? The village is very small.
It's 70 people.
So you basically know everyone by name now.
Well, they don't speak English, and I don't speak much French, so I don't know very many of them, but I know them by face. The chateau does have like when we have musicians, we'll do concerts for the village, so that's a nice way to interact.
Oh, that's cool. So work on the French, everybody. You don't need it, but you don't need it, but what do you need? Let's see. So here you are, you're painting a little bit. Oh, I'm in your face. I don't know which is better.
So that's actually the early stages of the painting behind me. So this is what it looks like now. And that's when I had just started it. So that's often how I start my paintings. I'll start on the floor with charcoal usually. I don't do that as much anymore just because it physically really hurts your back and your arms, but it is my preferred way to start a painting. My mom actually got me these great knee pads for it.
Amazing.
And that is one of the studios that I was using in France last year. I really filled up that space. I like to have a lot of paintings going all at once, so I can kind of bounce around from painting to painting. So all of the paintings in that photograph are works in progress. None of them are finished.
So it really gives you the space there in the chateau to make these paintings.
Yeah, well, I think it's important, to have a studio that you could trash. You don't care about the floor or the walls. So, it doesn't restrict your creation process. And that's one of the things that the chateau is great with.
There's a lot of different spaces to like really make it your own.
And it's a studio space, so it's in a chateau, but it's not precious.
Right.
It's a place for an artist to work.
Wow, that's amazing. So there's like so many spaces. How are you finding it in New York City? Because it's a very different, like, are you in New York City or are you like upstate?
I'm in Brooklyn. I'm in Williamsburg.
Okay. How are you finding the space?
Wonderful. I'm very lucky. So because of COVID, there's a lot of empty spaces these days. A lot of people are leaving the city, and rent is lower than it normally would be, or that's what people have told me. I don't have a lot of experience being here in non-COVID times, but we have a really great space here.
Wow. Can I ask how that opened up to you? Like the great spaces in Brooklyn, and maybe if you want to share some like ideas. with the people who might be looking?
I was just looking, Max and I were looking on Craigslist. Just typed in artist studio and used the map feature and looked at all the little pop-ups until we found one that we liked, and we're splitting the rent and the space.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's I have that piece in a more completed state on the wall. I can flip the camera.
Show us.
The dogs that are here might bark if they see me, but
that's
okay.
Perfect. That's perfect.
Right,
we welcome dogs.
So that is this one. Let's see. So it's a bit more, it's almost finished, I think. We'll see. I'll leave it hanging for a while and see where it goes. But I've got, the faces are more resolved now. And the hands, she's going to be holding an arrow here, which I haven't put in yet, but I think that might be the last little detail. There's some horns inspired by my monster masks.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
What was going on? Like, what was you talk about these internal conflicts. Can you tell me a little bit more about that with it?
I'm thinking. I'm not sure. I think a lot of it has to do with personal relationships. I'm dating someone now, and so there's going from being a solitary person to having another person in the dynamic. And so there's a lot of sort of, I've been doing more paintings with two figures now, and I think that might be why. But I still think that the meaning behind that specific painting has to do with your own thoughts. So you have, here, I'll go back to it. You have the figure, there are the dogs. you have
I love dogs.
Me too. You have this figure who's sort of whispering to this one, but she's also kind of holding him by the neck, and then there's this what will be an arrow there. So it's kind of like a mixed message painting between two figures. And I do think that both figures are kind of like a representation of self. So sometimes you have a voice in your head that isn't necessarily being kind to you, but you hear it as kind. So it's sort of like that weird mixed dynamic of your own thoughts and self-esteem, I guess, and questioning your own choices too.
It seems like you've gone through a lot of the questioning choices with this whole COVID thing, as I'm sure a lot of people have. Like, it's not an easy time it's an epic time to be alive, that's for sure.
It's certainly different than any other time before. I think, I'm sort of an exceptional case just because I had that question between countries. I think that was a very odd thing to have to be grappling with, because now that I'm back in the States, I can't go back to France. I don't know when I'm going to go back to France. So it's really picking one life or the other without any surety between either.
So, I mean, aren't we all kind of in this transition period in some way, shape, or form? This too shall pass. So how are you able to balance that now between the transition and the painting? Because you said it's difficult for you in transitions, but like, what is that balance for you? What settles for you that you feel like you're able to paint again?
I think my relationship and my partner have really helped with that, because I'll just give the background behind the relationship is that it was Max, who I was doing that photography stuff with in France. We met right when COVID hit, and I came to New York with him. And so that's like a very turbulent time to start any form of relationship. And, as we've spent more time together because we're in quarantine together, to have another artist who you're close with you and able to share a studio and all these things, it helps you kind of find some form of stability in the midst of all the chaos.
Mm.
So
you've found some ability for stability.
Yeah, he's helped a lot with that.
So I think that's an interesting balance that we're talking about, is like with these dynamics, because we're talking about dynamics in the paintings, and about this like between the chaos and the stable and the transition and the balance. How do you find that like the two chaos kind of pieces are able to play off? Like you're talking about these two figures. Do you have some other figures in the room that might play to other
Yes.
aspects?
So there's this one which you've seen a little bit of, which has the words up here. What if they were monsters? I like to start with words a lot of the time. And I have this guy over here, which is sort of two figures and one all at once. And I think at the top it had said we all burn together, and you can only see the together part, which is directly from some sketches that I did at the beginning of COVID when I was still in France, when people were still quarantined with us. I think there was a lot of dark thoughts and a lot of fear, and we were sort of isolated in this very rural, magical world together, but didn't really know what was going on outside of it. And I've got this painting, which is still in its ugly teenage phase, so it's barely a sketch at the moment.
I love things like that are just like barely a sketch at the moment, and it's just like it leaves the imagination.
And I mean, those are the only double figures I have up right now. I have this one, which I brought out to show you.
Oh yeah.
Which is a solitary figure, and I hate it, so it's been rolled up, but I thought it was a good thing to share. So this is has been 3 different paintings now, and I've blocked over it a couple of times. And I'm now keeping it rolled up because I'm frustrated with it.
The frustration.
Yes, the famous frustration.
Right. And struggling. How are you dealing with like this frustration and being able to deal with that in the world without all the other maybe aspects and people? Because you seem to have like a lot of it coming out in your art.
I think that's how I deal with it. I will admit, like the past week or so, I've been, for lack of a better word, really pretty depressed. I haven't been going to the studio. I've been hanging out in my room, and sort of not doing much of anything. And it's sort of like, as an artist, you have to know when to just allow yourself to be a lump and forgive that you're not working on stuff. And you have to know when it's a good time to really push yourself to go into the studio. Like I've done a bit of physical therapy off and on for my arms, and it's like learning the difference between good pain and bad pain. It's like knowing what's a good rest and a bad rest. And someone once told me that sometimes you just have to force yourself to go to the studio to clean paintbrushes. If you go and you clean paintbrushes, or you clean your palette, or you sweep the floor, you might find yourself doing something more, or even just sitting in your studio and looking at your work, even if you don't touch a paintbrush, is a good and productive use of time. So that's what I tell myself when I'm really frustrated and I don't want to work on anything. I just go to clean paintbrushes and then I usually end up doing something.
How do you like feel about that cleaning paintbrushes? Do paintbrushes just go unattended? Like what happens with these?
I don't treat my supplies or my art very, very well. I've
In the
definitely,
past. This is all in the past. We're talking about the past here.
well, I've definitely given friends of mine who are artists mild heart attacks when they see me moving my art around the studio. I don't like treating my materials or my supplies too preciously, just because my process of making art is very sort of aggressive and wild. When I first start, those images of me on the floor, big movements. It's why I like working large. So I have definitely ruined a good number of paintbrushes.
It's the energy you've put into them.
But a good ruined paintbrush can create some interesting texture. I will say that.
Yeah. So that well, it's all part of everyone's process. So I think
Yeah.
that's the interesting thing is that we learn what paintbrushes work for us. What materials work for us in our
Mhm.
process.
Mhm.
So that's an interesting note. I'm curious to go along here and see some more. Ask some questions, by the way. Feel free. And we talked about you painting on your face.
Yes. So this was during early in quarantine when it was still like four or five of us at the chateau. Um, One of the artists covered an entire room with graffiti spray paint. So he took one of the studio rooms because like a bunch of them were empty and just covered it in spray paint. And so we were all sort of hanging out upstairs while he did that and doing kind of wild things with paint and masks. And I turned to Max and I said, I have an idea. And I went into my studio and I just smeared acrylic paint all over myself. I was like, let's take photos. So this is one of those photos.
That's awesome. So it's really like a thing because it seems like you in this time it really gave you time to go beyond what you were doing before.
Mm. I had done some face paint before, but I think it was more there was less freedom in it. I was too wrapped up in what other people might think or doing a good job. And I think when the pandemic really hit and we were bored, I stopped caring, what it ended up looking like or what people thought. It was just sort of like, I'm bored. Let's do something, whatever. Um,
So put some artists in a space where they get bored and some materials and
yeah,
interesting things might happen.
yeah, they might set a couch on fire and film a music video. Who knows?
Did this happen?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. No, I mean, I imagine it could happen, but I mean, I'd like to see it. Post a link.
Okay.
So everyone, go follow. Where can we find you if we want to see this music video that you're going to post a link to in your stories?
Well, I don't think the full video got posted because Instagram took it down because the music that was being used was like copyright or something. We filmed it to Bella Ciao.
Uh-huh.
Um, but it was a friend of mine, Andre Kosakov's Instagram. He posted the photos from it, and I don't know off the top of my head what his Instagram is.
That's okay. What's your Instagram?
My Instagram is Elinor Shapiro, ELINORSHAPIRO. Just my
Nice.
name.
Perfect. Perfect. So we'll check out all the things there. Make sure to go follow right now. So uh Sheer says SHIR. That's what we're gonna call you now. You call me AAR. So matching your painting, but more colorful. what do you think about matching your painting? Because I saw some like blue faces. I saw some different things. What is this relationship between you and your paint,
I'll
being
answer
your
that
painting?
in one sec. Beer and Cab Fair, who's Max, just posted the link to the account, Andre's account that has that music video.
Perfect.
So
Perfect.
it's in the comments there.
AndReYKOZAKOV has the video.
Yes.
So go check it out.
In relation to matching my paintings, I think
Mm-hmm.
there's probably some truth in that because, you know, I think most people paint what they know, and the best reference I have is myself. And I think I dress a little bit like my paintings because I like colors and funky patterns, and that makes an appearance in my paintings as well. My haircut seems to show up as well.
Because you mentioned sometimes they're like yourself is in the painting, your the piece of you, the pieces of you.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's never really intentional. I'm just sort of drawing or painting what comes to me. But like I said, we paint what we know, and I know myself better than anything else.
That's an
So
interesting thing. What what do you find is interesting how to get to know yourself? What do you what do you consider to get to know yourself?
I think for me, it was freedom really helped with that. So like, you know, when you're a kid, you get put in school, which is great. I mean, school's a good thing. I support schooling, but you know, all day every day you're given assignments and told what to do and how to spend your time. And when I left college to go to France, it was at that moment that I really started having like true freedom in myself and in what I was doing. And I was able to just sort of explore whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted, without having a professor or a teacher lead me. And I think that's really what transformed my art into me, into what I am, and it being what I, you know, sort of a mirror.
Hmm. So how did you connect with Chateau Orcaville? Like, what was that moment that you're like, I'm going to rural France and I'm just going to stay there? And
Well, I went in 2018 for a residency. So I was just going to go for a month. And so I took the semester off school and I went to the chateau for just the month of November. And then I went home. And then in the summer of 2019, Ziggy contacted me to just have me help out for a little bit over the summer. It wasn't supposed to be permanent or anything. I was just gonna go help out, you know, around the place. And from the very start, I was cracking jokes with my parents, saying, "Oh, you know, if I come back, you might never see me again." And with Ziggy, it was always sort of, you know, well, I got to finish school before I come back. I got to. And then there was just this moment. I was, you know, a month into the summer there, and I was just sort of like, I don't really have to finish school. I don't really have to go back. And it sure was a surprise to my parents when I called and I said, so that joke that I've been making about not coming home, I'm not coming home. So that's sort of how
that
it
was the
happened.
summer of 2019 and you hadn't come back till fall.
Well, that was the summer of 2019, and I did go back to LA just to like get my stuff together, to really formally move out there. And I was there from September of 2020 until 2021.
So a
Yep.
year of being at the chateau. Wow. It's pretty informative. Yeah, no, I've definitely been there before. I just like went for 2 months and then it ended up being like a lot longer. I was there, like that was me in India and so many other times. I'm like, oh, I'm just going. And then
That
And then
freedom is
I'm staying
wonderful.
there making work and getting lost in the desert for 40 days and nights.
Oh,
These
wow.
things happen.
Yeah.
These
To
things
artists,
happen.
to artists, they do.
It's like, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. We're all here in this together.
Well, I like to think about it as work because if you're getting lost in somewhere new on some adventure, that can only inspire more work.
Oh, it's inspired me so much. I couldn't have I couldn't be doing what I'm doing now if I wasn't lost in the desert for 40 days and nights. I'll tell you that. It was like we've got people on from all over. So it's like 40 degrees Celsius. That's like 100 some degrees. It was every day in
That's
the desert.
crazy.
The times we're lost are sometimes the times we're found. So we find the most in the times we're lost. Perhaps. So what did you tell me about some of these things that you found while you were because it seems like this time between everybody leaving this like and March and September, that's a couple months.
Yeah, it was very strange because normally when things are functioning as they should, we would have like 20 new artists every month. So it was always a house filled with artists and art and people exploring, and it just stopped, and it was the five of us just doing the same thing, in isolation.
Wow.
Yeah, it was
6 months.
the first few months, I will admit that it was a lot of fun, and then it just sort of began to set in that, you know, kind of frozen time and isolation.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean 6 months in rural France, that's gotta, it could be a challenge. I mean, although you had your artist studio and lived in a little village in isolation, but
It was great while people were still there. As
hmm
soon as people were starting to be able to fly back home, it started to get a little bit empty. I'm certainly complaining, you know, where I shouldn't be. I had a studio and space, and there were a lot of it that was very wonderful, but there was no new people, no artists. It was kind of depressing.
so well, I think that's an interesting thing is that the people make the place. Like
Yeah.
David, like oh David, oh
Yeah.
David is back. Oh David, you're back. I remember you. You came on a couple times ago. So the wine, don't forget the wine.
Yep.
Lots of wine and isolation. That's a how do you feel about that?
Well, he's not wrong. I
He's
mean,
not wrong.
the wine was like €2 a bottle. So,
Right. Perfect. Perfect. It sounds so there's pluses. There's pluses to the
yeah.
isolation.
I mean,
Isolation art.
again, we were not in a city, so there was a lot more space. We weren't stuck in a small apartment or something like many people are, unfortunately. But it just became sort of routine. There was nobody to talk to, and nothing to really do with people. It was sad when you're used to the house being filled with lots of boisterous artists.
This sounds like a lot like life we
Yeah.
go through, like through periods of time. Like it sounds like a lot of people experience this in much larger ways. In fact, where it's very boisterous, and then all of a sudden, the house is empty. Where did everyone go? Or like all of a
Mhm.
sudden, nothing is there. What is life without the people? And it's interesting because in your art then you're taking us to these internal communications between the self.
Mhm.
So what's
Yeah.
happening?
Sorry.
No, go for it. You said tell me.
No, no, no. Ask me what you were gonna ask me.
Oh no, I was just asking how that relates to like something like this.
I did. while I was in France and the isolation was going on, I did try to paint. Um, and all the paintings that I was sort of trying to create were more isolated figures because that's what I was dealing with. Um, and I just wasn't ever happy with the results. There was just this missing element. And I think it is because while my paintings do form from sort of parts of myself having conversations, those conversations can't start without something outside of myself influencing it. You know, something has to start the conversation. And if you're sitting in a room completely alone, there's nothing to start that conversation within yourself. So maybe, you know, I'm hanging out with a table full of artists and we're talking about something and philosophy, for example, and a debate starts. I can sit there and I can think about it and listen to these people that are talking, and then I can go away into my studio alone and the debate can continue in my head, can ping pong around, and then that can become the painting. But if that debate isn't happening at the table, there's nothing to ping pong around.
Well, it's an interesting observation. I was just thinking about this. If you look at my post last night, it's like, what, it's like, how do we observe as artists? Like, what are we observing? Are we you know, in our observation of the inner world, the observation of the external world, and how does that continue on within us? So I'm just curious, like, what is that when you're sitting there? Because there's like this observation of the external world for you in the conversation, and then it comes back into the internal world as it ping pongs around your head. Can you tell me a little bit more?
Well, I think that each person has a unique and individual perception of the world. You can't, as a human being, you can't see something completely unbiased. There's no way to do that because you will always have that filter of your own eyes, of your experiences, your opinions, your feelings. And so it's sort of like I take what is around me and I see it through my filter and then I put it back out there.
So what is the world without the senses?
Depends on which senses, I guess. Without any senses, it would probably be nothing. But you know, if you ask someone like Helen Keller that with missing sight and sound, but yet she was able to write books and speak and have opinions, and you know, the world is a very different place because she sees it through her filters.
Yeah, I guess I think a lot about this idea of one hand clapping and what that is, you know, when what I study a lot of like Zen and things like that, and so it's very interesting, the ideas of isolation and what that gives to the artist, and where it's time to come down from the mountain and engage with the world. And also the questions that you've been dealing with, it's like, what world do you want to be engaging with?
Yeah, I mean, they're big questions. I think I notice in myself, if I'm in a world that is filled with a lot of negativity, I do very poorly. I think that's probably the case for a lot of people, but for me especially, it just sort of depletes me. But when I'm in a world that is open and willing to converse and debate and grow and see things from different perspectives, that's when my art really blossoms. And I think that's why the Chateau is such a wonderful place, because it's bringing together artists from all over, and they all have different perspectives, but they're all coming to the table wanting to talk about and understand the other artists' perspectives.
Because Ziggy has this idea of people leave behind all of their previous life and they'll come back, but it's like, it's a place away from that, and also a place for productivity.
Definitely. I think it's very true. People come bringing sort of their best selves. They're not there with the frustrations of daily life. Maybe they have a kid that they have to take care of at home. They no longer have to, while they're at the chateau, they don't have to deal with that. They don't have to go grocery shopping or decide what to make for dinner or anything like that. They can just be and be purely as an artist. They're not an artist and a Starbucks worker or an artist and a mom. They're just an artist, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting because you have a role there also. So you're an artist and something, but you're still able to be
Hmm.
productive and enjoying that, it seems. Or there's almost a duality in that, in the supporting of the utopia.
Yeah, well, I love working there because I'm an artist and I get to benefit from being there, but I also am there to make sure that the place is beneficial to other artists. So if you need another lamp in your studio in order to create your work, I can make sure that happens. And it might seem like a small thing, but to help give people that gift of that freedom and that wonderful experience is something that I find very positive in my life, and I really, really love.
Mm. So you're able to so because it's an interesting balance to balance what does it mean to be an artist, to have that freedom, that positivity, that conversation, and yet to also have the underpinnings of the utility that
Hmm.
keeps that ability to be alive.
I was raised by a professor. My dad was a professor, and it's something I wanted to teach for a while. I wanted to be a professor. Um, and I sort of get the same benefit working at the chateau that I would if I were a professor, because a professor helps and nurtures growth in the student. And I'm not saying that I'm teaching anyone, but I am able to provide them a place to grow, and I can help them, um, even just helping have conversations about art and asking people questions about their art helps them grow. And so I love helping Ziggy with that project.
Mm. Mm. So asking the questions about the art, that's an interesting thing. What question would you ask yourself about your art in this time to, get out of your rut? Like, if you could observe yourself as the second person now, because it seems like you're going through a hard space right now.
Yeah.
What sort of questions would you ask yourself as the outside observer to move through, if that's what you felt like needs
Hmm.
to happen right now?
I think I would probably ask myself why the composition needs to be the way that it is, because I feel like a lot of my paintings have the same kind of composition, the two figures sort of bending inward, and a lot of them are in square frames. And I do feel sometimes that my art can be redundant. And this is me also being very hard on myself, but it is something that's swirling around in my brain, trying to push myself forward into new realms with my art. And I think I've got part of the answer to that, which is that I've been kind of stuck doing figurative work that very much is almost like Egyptian hieroglyphics. So like if you know in Egyptian hieroglyphics, they're almost like these paper dolls. So a limb is going to move like this, but it's not going to move towards you. And I never branch out from that. I never have the figures coming out at you in the painting. That's something I want to start doing more of, but that's only half the question.
What's the other half?
The other half is, why are they always two figures? Why should I push not for three? And I tell myself it's because of size of canvas, but that may just be an excuse.
Mm, mm, mm. So is that something you're thinking about, like exploring next?
Yeah, I think one of my biggest struggles is working small. All my canvases are really, really big. because I can't seem to get myself to be as loose on a smaller canvas. And so to start fitting in 3 or 4 or 5 figures into a canvas means that I gotta shrink down the figures. And all of my figures are like life size or bigger.
Or go to a bigger canvas.
Right.
You
Yeah,
could.
I want to, but then do I need to buy scaffolding? It
This is
starts
a
to
good
be
question. See,
it
that's
starts
a
to be
good
big.
question. Do I need to buy scaffolding? If you were at the chateau and an artist that's not you said, if I want to put 3 in there and I want to make my canvas bigger, what do I need? What would you tell them? What
The
would you say you're
difference
gonna
the difference is that I know somebody in France who has scaffolding I could borrow.
There you go. There you go. So New York City.
Man, I should have stayed in France. They had scaffolding.
You can actually make scaffolding out of bamboo. I lived in Hong Kong for a while.
Wouldn't it be really bouncy?
They do it. They make like 10, 20-story building, maybe like 10-story buildings. I don't know. But at least the first 6 or 7 out of bamboo.
Wow.
So
Do you know where I could find bamboo in New York City?
this is a question you can put to the world.
That might be even harder.
I don't know. I mean, take a trip to upstate. You might just find it. But I'm sure you can find scaffolding. There's plenty of especially now. They're probably not working on all the buildings.
True.
Probably get a good deal on some scaffolding right now, actually. You never know. Oh, talk about the gallery.
That's my mom. So I'm working with Van Rensburg Galleries in Australia, and they just did a show of my work there, which was my first big show and very exciting. So I had six large paintings shipped over.
Nice. I'm supposed to do one of these talks with them, so encourage that. Make that happen. We're setting a time.
Good.
We're
She's
working
great.
on a time.
They're great.
Yeah, I'm working on different ideas. So if you know somebody out there, I'm talking to you, the audience, let me know. DM me. Get at me. Aaron Jack Line Art. Add me. There we go. Let's see. What do we have? What's going on?
There's Van Rensburg. Oh, so that's a jacket that I painted.
Mm-hmm.
So in France, there's like these, or at least in rural France, there were these great thrift stores where you could buy a shirt for €1 and a jacket for €2. This is the cheapest. I got all my clothing there and I loved it. So here, I can show you actually.
Show us.
So
we're gonna have the fashion show right here.
This is the only piece that I brought from France back with me, and it's the one in that photograph. But I was buying clothing there and painting it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just like one of my projects of when I'm in a rut and I can't make something. So I was making outfits. Just spray paint and acrylic paint and pastels, paint marker, sort of whatever I had on hand. And so that's what that was.
Oh, cool. Can you put it on?
Not really.
Not really.
I'm
Not
wearing
really
a
right
sweater that won't allow me to wear it.
That's fair. That's fair. Another time, another place. Amazing. Bright smokes, a self-confidence tips as an artist, as a person too. They love your work. There we go. Amazing exhibition, says Van. I'm just gonna call you Van on here because amazing exhibition, fragments.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the gallery, Van Rensburg Galleries.
In Australia. So you shipped all of your work to Australia and then...
Yep. And then I had them stretched and hung them up.
Oh, perfect. Amazing. Amazing. Is it still going on right now?
For 2 more days, I believe.
Yeah, get at us in the comments and tell us when and where, and let us know, so that in case anybody's in Australia, invite your friends, let them know we're going to be in Australia. We're in Australia. That's the way it is. That's amazing. So before we wrap this up, where can everybody find you?
So I'm only really active on Instagram, and I have a website, but I post more regularly on Instagram at Elinor Shapiro, ELINOR SHAPIRO. So that's where all my updates are. Um,
Oh, perfect.
yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. And do you have any words of inspiration for the people out there? Some inspiration for the world, what the world needs to hear right now from the heart.
I think sometimes you just gotta finger paint. Like it's I fully support making, more formal art pieces and dedicating your time to that, but sometimes you need to let loose and sit on the floor and finger paint or make something stupid or draw a little stick figure doing something dumb and bring the fun back into it, because that's something that really helps me. Uh, so that would be my one little tidbit for whatever that's worth.
It's worth the world. This moment could be yours if you follow that. How's that? Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much for joining. Is there
Bye.
anything else you'd like to say before we close this out?
Not really that I can think of.
Perfect. Just
Um,
go on finger paint, right?
yeah, just go finger paint. Go do something fun.
Cool.
All right.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. All right. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm Aaron Jack. You can find me at Aaron Jack Line Art. Make sure to follow me right up here. Press that follow button. Also, Thursdays, I'm on Freedom Tapestry Project. So we have a curator, Samia in Syria, Ben's our producer in LA, Lena's in the UK. So all over the world, bring you amazing artists. I'm here in Aaron Jack Line Art every Tuesday, bring you more artists. We have had amazing artists today. Amazing, amazing. Elinor is amazing. We've had Jose. Jose's amazing. So go check out the one with Jose. Make sure to check out the one with Ziggy, because that connects to all this Chateau Orcaville and our ideas of the utopia that we want, how to build that utopia, how to live in it. That's really something that's important. So thank you. Thank you for joining. I appreciate you. I'll see you Thursday on Freedom Tapestry Project and next Tuesday on Aaron Jack Line Art with more artist to art. Thank you all so much. See you next time.